Hey everyone, Chenny from Goldfinger Holdings. I am the product manager of TestRay app inside Jira. Welcome to today's micro webinar. Today, I'm going to talk about fault traceability between requirements, test cases, and defects inside TestRay app. So now let me switch to my demo project, flight reservation system. And then from left side, go to test menu. That is our TestRay app entrance page. So by default, it will launch Test Suite. Since today, we are going to talk about traceability. Let's start from requirement. Will be listed here. So I have already created some suite here. So the hierarchy is presented in this page. That is a feature from our TestRay app. Now, let me open any of the requirement to check the traceability information. This requirement is in story issue type. If I scroll down and then go to test case tab, you will see the test cases created to cover this particular requirement. So this is kind of traceability from requirement to test cases created by testing team. So sometimes we may need to trace more about a specific test result from a test case. So it is quite simple. Just go to this test case issue, click on the extend icon. It will launch the test case execution history. You see here, this test case FIS 15 has been executed from 3 different test plans. So if you want to check more, let's say, okay, for this 4 regression testing, I want to check the latest result. You see here, the colored block means the result. So green means passed, yellow means it is blocked. So let's just check more. Click on this result icon. It will take user to this detailed execution. So from where the test case has been executed, who did that, and what is the result. So in other words, when we launch our requirement, we are easily to track the test cases created to cover this requirement and also the execution result or execution history. So now, if you want to track more, let's say I have hundreds of test cases created to test this requirement, but I don't care. I only care about the defect and the defect status. So then you can just go to this defect tab. All test cases created from these test cases will be listed here. So it is quite easily for user to track, okay, how many defects are there reported against this particular requirement and how many defects are still in open status. This is kind of traceability from requirement to test case to execution result and to defect. Now, let me do another tracking. Let's say if I open the test case, what kind of traceability information we can get from the test case details or test case issue. So in this test case issue, if you go to this requirement tab, user is easily to know from which requirement this particular test case is created from. So this is linked together. And then if I go back to the defects, let's launch any of the defect here. For example, FIS 23, it is a bug which is linked to requirement. So sometimes when we launch or defect, we want to know from which test case it was reported. Here you see we have test case details window to show the test case information, test case issue key, and even more from which execution the defects is reported against. If I click on that, the test run ID, it will launch the execution details dialog box from where you can read when this execution is done at the time the defect was reported. And even more, if you want to see more about steps, you see here, steps result are listed, and this defect is linked in the 6th step. All this information, they are linked together. So this is our traceability. From requirement, you read the test case information, you get the defect information. From the test case, you read the requirement information, and also if you go to test plan tab here, it will also show the execution information and the defect information. And then if you go inside your defect, you can read the test case information, execution information, and requirement information. All these 4 items or 4 entities, requirement, test case, defect, and execution, they all connected together. If you launch any of them, you can read the other 3 information. So when we are talking about requirement or requirement traceability, we usually want to see the traceability matrix, right? It will show a big picture of your requirement and also the test cases, executions, and defects, etc. So it will be in the past. This is the report to centrally give you that information. Here I have already saved a filter. I want to track Sprint 23 traceability matrix. Let me launch it now. Now it is going to generate data from the database. You see here, first column are the requirements I just filtered from Sprint 23. And then the second column, they are test cases created by QA team to test this requirement. And then from third columns, there are different test plans from there, from where it is a user story or it is a general requirement inside our system. And from this Sprint 20, this test plan, you will see there is a red icon, means the testing is failed from this particular test plan. In this case, if you click on this red icon, it will launch that particular test execution from where you can read the execution details information, time step, tester information, and here, if there were any attachment or step defect or any comments here, it will be launched there. And if you see there's a icon, bug icon there, means at least there's one defect reported from this particular test case from this test plan. In other words, these defects will impact the corresponding requirement. Let me click on this bug icon. It will launch defect details dialog box and show the defects reported against this particular test case and against this particular requirement. This is our traceability matrix from requirement to test case to execution result and to defect. Hope it will help you to understand our product better. It's pretty much for today's webinar. If you have any question or you're interested in your product, feel free to reach out to us at sales@goldfingerholdings.com.